Happy Taco Tuesday, everybody. And don't forget, here on Taco Tuesday, we talk new movies, and today I'm going to be talking about this one. But before I do any of that, I want to talk about the origins of this character in this story.
The origins of CandyMan. The story of CandyMan was conceived by author Clive Barker. You might know who Clive Barker is. He's the author of The Hellbound Heart, and also the writer and director of the movie Hellraiser. In 1985, a short story of the Candyman was published. The title of this short story was called The Forbidden. This is the first image of what Candyman looked like in the short story. Since the author grew up in a lower class neighborhood in Liverpool, England, this short story takes place in England. The appearance of Candyman in this short story is very different than we are known him to be. In this story, he has a red beard, he has the hook for a hand, and pale and almost jaundiced looking skin, and a torso full of bees. Just like the movie in 1992, the short story follows a young grad student who seeks to know the truth about Candyman and wants to know more about the urban legend. However, what she doesn't realize is that she's going to be met with disastrous consequences. In the early 1990s, Bernard Rose, writer and director, went out to make the movie The Forbidden, but wanted to get Clive Barker's permission and obtain the rights. Bernard wanted to take these characters outside of England and take them to a more realistic rural area, and he settled on Chicago after visiting the city of Chicago for a film festival, and he decided on to settle on the area of Cabrini Green for the film. Once the locations were changed, Bernard Rose also wanted to make some additional changes to the character of Candyman. He wanted to stay true to the story, however he wanted to make some additional changes. He wanted to keep Candyman still as a vengeful spirit and also keep him with a hook for a hand. He also wanted to keep the character charming and keep the voice very hypnotic, and also he wanted to keep the torso of bees still the same. Once the word was out that Bernard Rose wanted to change the character's race from being a white man to a black man, the studios initially thought of someone right away. They actually thought of actor and comedian Eddie Murphy for the part. However, that did not work out all for the better because they came across a well-trained actor in theater who stood at 6'5" and a voice like no other. Once actor Tony Todd was hired for the part, he and Bernard Rose decided to come up with ways to make Candyman more realistic and give him motivation, and also flesh him out and make him more of a character than he was ever written in the book. The two of them came up with Candyman's origin story in great detail. Not only was the character of Candyman a good person, a talented person, a very well-educated person, and he was just wrongfully and unjustly killed, and the only thing that he ever did wrong was love somebody. These two creative minds not only made Candyman a vengeful spirit, but also a sad spirit, and also a romantic spirit when you think about it in many ways when you watch the 1992 film.
So just a little FYI for everybody that's watching, for anybody that's watching, there might be some potential spoilers here because I'm going to be comparing certain things and certain characters from the previous film to this film, so there will be some spoilers up ahead. I apologize about that. So now let's get into it. Let's talk about Nia DaCosta's Candyman 2021. Written and directed by Nia DaCosta, executive produced by Jordan Peele, and co-written by Jordan Peele. Cabrini Green has changed since the last time most of us have seen it since the 1992 film. It has now become a gentrified area. We're now following a young, inspiring artist played by actor Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. This character's name is Anthony, and we're following him around as we discover that he is actually losing some of his creativity and is not as inspired as he once was. Anthony lives in a nice gentrified apartment with his girlfriend Brianna, played by actress Tiana Paris. His girlfriend right now is actually becoming successful. She's actually climbing up the ladder in her business. She's a curator for artists, and she's actually growing up to be something very successful, while Anthony is still trying to be creative and still trying to do his thing. However, his audience is not seeming to be enjoying what he's been creating. He overhears a story and a legend about someone in Cabrini Green, and he finds it very interesting and wants to learn more about it. Initially, he hears about a story about a crazy woman named Helen, and who went crazy and went on a murderous rampage in the Cabrini Green area. Anthony at this point is eager to visit and investigate this urban legend in the old Cabrini Green project area, when it looks to be abandoned at this time. He then bumps into a character named William Burke, played by actor Coleman Domingo. Coleman Domingo lets him know about the story of Helen and what happened to her, but also letting him know that this woman went crazy because she was learning about the legend of Candyman. Anthony becomes very inspired and very obsessed with the Candyman character and also the lore, and he actually begins to spark his creativity once again. And something again has been unleashed in Cabrini Green, and murderous rampage starts to begin. When I first saw the trailer to this film and I saw Vanessa Williams was in it, I was like, oh my god, is Vanessa Williams in it? And then when they mentioned that the main character of this film is Anthony, I was like, oh my god. I was able to put everything together when watching the trailer. Also, I was very excited because I was like, oh my god, they're making some connection here to the previous film. I was like, those are good connections to begin with. So I was all about it. And also during the trailer, once I saw that Anthony was scratching his hand and I looked like his body was kind of morphing, I was already thinking to myself, oh my god, we are going to have like a modern day like Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy Revenge type of movie where our main character is actually going to be transforming into the monster, either Freddy Krueger. In this case, it looked like Anthony was going to be morphing into Candyman, taking a human form. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be maybe like a possession kind of a story where Candyman is maybe going to be possessing Anthony at some point and maybe just overall transforming into him at some point in the movie. And I was like, yes, I am all about that because I felt like those characters were interesting in the first movie to begin with, especially Vanessa Williams. Her character was done so well in the first film. I actually wanted to know more about her, what she had been doing from that time, from 1992 up until now. This movie is shot very, very well. The coloring that they use for the screen is amazing. Even like the low shots that they use to make the building seem that much taller is just very well done. The way that the camera was moving around, the way that the scenes were set up was all very good. Instead of using typical flashback scenes, they used a lot of puppetry stuff, and I thought that was very clever. I thought that was a cool way. In fact, it kind of added a little bit of mystery to it, or not even mystery, but maybe potential scares. It kind of made the story more interesting, especially when dealing with the flashbacks, because, you know, instead of going, you know, to some old footage or some reenactment, I thought this was a better way to do it. The acting in this movie was very well done. I thought Tiona Paris was probably the best character of the movie, just because her character wasn't the typical girlfriend or typical spouse. She actually seemed pretty smart. Every time something was going wrong or something kind of seemed a little off or creepy, she pretty much called it out right then. She was like, no, I'm not doing this. You know, I'm not saying the name. I'm not saying Candyman. I'm not going down these dark, scary stairs. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not about that. She's like, I'm out of here. The metamorphosis. I love a good metamorphosis scene. I don't see these enough. I feel like that kind of died out in the early 80s. You know, everything between American Wolf and London, The Fly, and even watching Jesse transform into Freddy Krueger, that spoiled me as a kid as far as anything metamorphosis. There has been years and years and years of not seeing something like that in a long time. Probably not until District 9 when our main character was actually transforming into an alien. That was probably the last time I've actually seen it. So once I kind of had an idea that that was going to be happening in this movie, I was like, yes, I want to see this happening because they kind of give it away in the trailer. We see Anthony kind of is scratching at his hand. His hand seems to be getting infected. It kind of looks like it's spreading around. And I was even thinking like, oh man, is his arm going to fall off? There were a lot of things in this movie that I enjoyed a lot. However, there were a lot of things I did not like about this movie. I will say what I did not like about this movie, I'll start with this off right away, was this movie was not scary. Not scary at all. The first film, I hate to compare it to the first film. Since it is a sequel, you kind of have to compare it to the first film. The first film scared me as a kid. I remember not so much of the character of Candyman, but the actual what happens to you. Because in the first movie, they explain you don't just get killed. You get stabbed from your groin to your gullet. So that, to me, as a kid, scared the hell out of me. Anything remotely doing with downstairs, I was like, no. And then especially in the scene in the first movie where the young boy Jake takes Helen to the public restroom and he says, some little kid got killed there. And then when they cut to that one little scene with that little kid on the floor, it scared me as a kid. Even in that same scene, Jake is saying, some tough guy went across the street to see what was going on, and he got so scared that his hair turned white. There were a lot of little things like that were missing that I wished were in the movie or implemented in the movie because I felt like it would have added to it. Speaking of the way Candyman killed in the first one and then the way people get killed in this movie they kind of just got killed in a typical slasher kind of way. You know, people were getting the throats cut, you know, they're getting stabbed, you know, randomly here and there. I didn't really dig it because it wasn't the Candyman, you know, way. If you would have done it the other way, I probably would have been a lot scared. Overall look of Candyman in this movie, I just really wasn't into. We don't see him a lot of the times because he's usually invisible. However, when we do see him, we do kind of see him up close at some frames, and I was just not a big fan. In this film, Candyman is not just who we expect him to see. He takes the form of people that have been murdered unjustly. And I thought that was a good idea. I thought, you know, hey, that's kind of cool. He'll take the form of someone who was murdered in a wrongful way. You know, and I thought that was actually pretty cool. I thought that was a smart idea, especially if you want to be changing actors, you know, at some point during a sequel. I thought that was smart. However, when we saw him, I was like, ooh, I didn't buy it. Even when the character of the Candyman spoke, I was kind of like, Mirrors are very big in this movie, like they are in all Candyman movies. The only things with this, I felt like that what they were doing as far as you don't see him, you know, when you turn your head, but if you look in the mirror, you see him. I kind of feel like that's been played out, not so much by the Candyman movies, but other horror movies in general. I mean, Poltergeist 3 did a very good job of it. However, I felt like that was like an old hat that now is being used again, but I could be wrong. You know, it did work for some scenes, but it was kind of a gimmick that was being used throughout the whole movie. And I kind of just wasn't doing it for me as far as scare tactics. I will say in many ways I felt like I got duped because, like I said, we see Vanessa Williams in the trailer, and I was like, oh my god, Anne-Marie is back. And she was probably going to be telling us some more scary stories, give us some more exposition, because in the movie, she's Anthony's mother, and we kind of learned that they're kind of estranged for some reason, or he's just avoiding her, but we never know why. You never get an explanation of why, and I was kind of like, okay, maybe when she finally comes into the movie, we'll understand why. However, the scene that we see in the trailer is the only scene that she's in, and I was very disappointed in that because I was like, she's such a big piece of this story. You guys should have used her to her full potential, because I was like, there's a lot of this artist stuff in the movie, which is fine because, you know, Candyman was an artist and so is this character. So I see how these all tie in together, but they spend a lot of time with like artist hip stuff, and I was kind of like, if we would have cut that out and kind of filled it in with some more backstory, because the Anne-Marie character, especially in the first film, she sells the scares a lot of the time in the movie as well. In the first movie, I'm sorry, I hate to compare it again to the first one, but in the first movie, when she's telling Helen the story of the death of Ruby Jean, she is just telling the story and she looks petrified. Between that and the soundtrack in the background, that's not very subtle, but it's there, and the way she's selling it and the way that she looks so petrified when she says, I could hear him coming through the walls. I could hear him coming through the walls, and I could hear him coming for her, and I could just hear her screaming, and all I could do was hold my baby. That scene alone in that movie was amazing, and it scared me, just not because like it was, you know, the soundtrack, the fact that she sold it and the soundtrack, but what we didn't see was very scary, and the fact that she sold it so well in that scene was just amazing. And I was like, I wish we had more of that. I did appreciate all the callbacks to the previous film because they do use elements of Helen's story in the movie. I did like that very much, and we do get some sort of cameo by Virginia Madsen in some way. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I was actually very glad that that happened. I was a little disappointed because I was like, oh man, that's just another movie where they ignore it. But if you do remember the original movie, Helen comes back at the end as an immortal person. And I was kind of hoping we would have seen some of that in some aspect, but unfortunately, no. Else that disappointed me, I would say it had to be on background story. We are introduced into like some more character details or plot details on the character of Brianna. We are understanding that she has some sort of childhood trauma with her father. Unfortunately, we kind of see one little snippet of it in a flashback or a dream sequence, and it's kind of left right there, and I was like, why was that there, especially if you're not going to go back and use it. There's a character from the original film that I wish was kind of in this film as well, especially as a character to provide backstory, especially for the Anthony character. I was hoping the character of Jake would have made an appearance of some sort, just because he was kind of very instrumental in the first film. I wish we would have learned what he was up to, what he did after the Great Bonfire. So like I said, I was very disappointed with the third act, and like I said, the overall look of Candyman himself. But not till the very, very end of the movie, maybe the last 10 seconds of the movie, they pull a Mandalorian at the end of the movie. You'll probably know what I'm talking about once I put the picture up. As far as a grade, this one's going to be a hard one for me to grade, because I really wanted to like this movie, but like I said, there was a lot of things that I did like and a lot of things I didn't like. I'm going to give Nia DaCosta's Candyman 2021 a C+. Well, thanks for sticking around for those that did. Hopefully I didn't get too nerdy with everybody on here. So hopefully you like what you see here. I'm Mike the Movie Misfit, and I'll see you at the movies.
Get more out of life. Go out to a movie.